to North Carolina.
Now to developments in the Middle East. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has publicly endorsed efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Lebanon, a significant shift in its stance as it has previously linked such calls to the end of the conflict in Gaza. Now, despite facing heavy setbacks in recent weeks, Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem maintained that Hezbollah's capabilities remain intact and its fighters continue to repel Israeli ground incursions. He warned, however, that the group would expand its rocket attacks deeper into Israel, potentially displacing more Israeli civilians. Meanwhile, UN humanitarian officials have expressed deep concern about the parallels between the current situation in Lebanon and the devastation seen in Gaza during the recent war. We'll have more in this report.
First cross-border fighting between Israeli forces and Hezbollah rages on, with Israel Defense Forces announcing that it killed at least 50 operatives in attacks across southern Lebanon. UN human rights spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence condemned Israeli action in Lebanon, accusing the IDF of using the same means and methods of warfare as in Gaza, and saying that the devastation is beyond belief in both regions. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister are expected to speak on the phone today, according to Israeli media reports, as Israel plans its response, possibly within days, to Iran's barrage of ballistic missiles last week. The Biden administration dropped its support for an immediate ceasefire in Lebanon and is openly supporting Israel's ground offensive. The declaration amounts to a reversal of the Biden administration's recent push for a 21-day ceasefire, which it had called critical to achieving longer-term stability along the Israeli-Lebanon border. Israel's prime minister has urged the Lebanese people to throw out Hezbollah and avoid destruction and suffering like we see in Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu's appeal came as Israel expanded its invasion against Hezbollah by sending thousands more troops into a new zone in southwest Lebanon. Its military said 50 members were killed in airstrikes on Monday. The Lebanese Health Ministry says 36 people have also been killed and 150 persons injured in Israeli attacks over the past 24 hours. Civilians continue to be caught in the crossfire when attacks occur, and many of them die. Secretary General Antonio Guterres today says the United Nations Palestine Refugee Agency, more than ever, is indispensable and irreplaceable, adding that he had written directly to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin to express profound concern about draft legislation.
The legislation will likely deal a terrible blow to the international humanitarian response in Gaza. UNRWA's activities are integral to that response. It's not feasible to isolate one UN agency from the others. It would effectively end coordination to protect UN convoys, offices and shelters, serving hundreds of thousands of people. Without UNRWA, the delivery of food, shelter and health care to most Gaza's population would grind to a halt. Without UNRWA, Gaza's 660,000 children would lose the only entity that is able to restart education, risking the fate of an entire generation.
Let's speak more on this. President Emeritus, Corporate Council on Africa, Stephen Hayes, joins me from Washington via Zoom. Good to have you join us.
Good afternoon. It's good to be with you again. Thank you.
So for the first time, we're seeing a top official of Hezbollah supporting efforts aimed at achieving a ceasefire in Lebanon. And it's also the first time the group has publicly endorsed a truce that doesn't come with the condition of end of a ceasefire in Gaza. What does this signify?
Well, I think it signifies that Hezbollah feels that it's losing quite a bit right now. It's lost its leadership, quite a few of those leaders. It's lost quite a few of the second echelon through the pager incident. And so I think that they're scrambling to put their own party together again. They're leaderless. They're also not trusting one another to some extent because there clearly is somebody on the inside letting them know where leaders are. So I think it's more Hezbollah not caring so much about the population as trying to protect itself right now and trying to regroup. And right now they are on the run. And I think that Israel feels that very strongly. And I think that's also why they're reluctant to accept a ceasefire right now.
All right, so we also understand that President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu will be speaking anytime this week. And we know that the U.S. is now moving away from, not necessarily moving away, but turning its immediate attention to trying to shape Israel's retaliation to Iran. Now, what if Israel's retaliation isn't proportional, a proportional response to what Iran has done, what would that mean for all efforts to bring peace to the region?
Of course, it's hard to define what's proportional. Iran did shoot 200 rockets to Israel, which was pretty serious. So how do you define proportionality is another issue. But let's assume that it isn't proportional. Then it does drag Iran more into the war. The U.S. will be into the war for certain because they're going to defend Israel, and they're going to also do what they can to undermine the Iranian regime. So it means a much more unstable. Not that it can't be much more unstable than it is now, but a much more unstable Middle East.
Mm. But as you look at the escalation and what has happened in the past few days, the call, do you think that, look, the fears of a wider conflict in the region has been laid to rest?
That's a very good question. The quick answer would be to say that, well, the fears aren't laid to rest. There's still a lot of fear that it could develop. But Hezbollah backing away, and Hezbollah is not getting a lot of support from Iran right now, despite whatever Iran says the rocket attack means. And so I think that Hezbollah being toned down some, and I hope they'll continue to be toned down further, means that I think there will be less regional conflict. It really now is in Iran's hands as to what they want to do next. Some would argue that it's in Israel's hands as well in terms of the retaliation. But I think Israel is going to continue to concentrate on southern Lebanon. It's particularly a tough one for me to watch because I started my international career in exactly that region, working in a Palestinian refugee camp a very long time ago. So it's a tough one to watch for me.
Mm. And it looks like everything is now hinged on Israeli retaliation to Iran, do you think?
Oh, I think to some extent, but I think it's not going to matter to the Hezbollah-Israeli conflict. I think Israelis are going to move on and push on Hezbollah, and I think the U.S. has made it fairly clear that they are going to step back out of this and support Israel. Even though President Biden and Macron and others are saying they want a ceasefire, I think the Biden administration now is seeing Israel making progress, and therefore is stepping back, not pushing quite as hard on that as they once did.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll be looking forward to that call or details of that call between the Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Biden. Thank you for your time, as always. President Emeritus, Corporate Counsel on Africa, Stephen Hayes.
Thank you. An honor.